Ever wanted to punch through a window? There's small cracks here. Oh!
Hello! To those of you who have survived this year's crisis that was supposedly going to kill us all but will be all over in a few months, welcome to 4-Bit. I'm Christian. Today we'll be tearing down the interior, taking out the steering rack and upper control arm, soldering a resistor to the airbag, for the driver's airbag, and then removing the windshield in a very dignified fashion. And stab the glass with it.
That hurts. Don't do that.
So we're going to start by talking about the damage. Now that's going to require a basic understanding of car suspensions, so I'll do a very brief explanation so we can get right to the parts where I hurt myself taking apart this car.
Now in our case we have a double wishbone setup. There's an upper control arm, or wishbone, and a lower control arm, with both control arms connecting to the frame. These hold the hub where the wheel and the brakes bolt up to.
So in my little analogy here, we have the upper control arm, and the lower control arm. And they're holding the hub, and that is connected to the wheel.
The coilover connects to the lower control arm and is just there to make going over bumps smooth. You get your steering from the steering rack, which is essentially what you're moving when you're turning your steering wheel. This connects to the hub with the inner and outer tie rods to control the direction of the wheels. This is why I had no control over the steering in my right wheel. My inner tie rod was snapped. All that information is just to make it easier to understand the accident and the damage the car took. So here's what happened, probably. There was some impact that caused the inner tie rod to snap, where it clipped part of the frame, and then the upper control arm, and then that was just barely pushed onto the coilover. The wheel, now that it was moving freely, also clipped the frame, denting it slightly. Luckily it wasn't anything crazy, and in the next video I should be addressing that frame and how we're going to go about fixing it. Because luckily that's not anything too bad, but it will need to be fixed. Now in most cars you can remove both the inner and outer tie rods, but with the Lotus Elise I guess you can't. So I bought a new steering rack and outer tie rods along with the upper wishbone needed. Replacing the steering rack is a hard job because you have to remove a lot of interior pieces to get to all the bolts necessary, which is what I'll show you now.
To the other side.
Alright, so this tie rod was being especially stubborn, and I tried a whole bunch of things that you probably shouldn't try. And what ended up working was, first you have to rip the boot off. If you put one of these things here, just clamp down and then pull down. So like you're gonna go pull down and it's gonna pop it up, and like that.
Times like these are here to show. You can do things for me and more. I got your back, just take things slow. Yeah. I'll bring everyone to show that I want your heart and more in my own life. I'll tell everyone there's no stopping us. Can I have you for the rest of my life?
That was so difficult. I've never felt more claustrophobic in my life, and I have crawled through tight spaces and caves. Nothing was that bad.
Rest of my life.
In addition to the suspension damage, there was also damage to the windshield. In the accident, the front clamshell broke one of its mounting points and hit the windshield, which means I have to replace it. Now, the Lotus windshield is not like a normal windshield because there's a rubber strip that is epoxied down to the edges of the windshield itself. So the windshield is epoxied down, and then on top of that, there's a rubber gasket thing that is epoxied down to the windshield. That meant that there isn't much of a chance that I could just remove the windshield with conventional tools because Lotus. I tried different wires and different methods, and I didn't call it professional because 1, I'm too stubborn, and 2, professionals would either refuse to touch it, or have no idea how to get it out, or charge an insane amount of money, or a combination of those 3. And also, I didn't really care how damaged the windshield became because it was getting thrown out anyways, and I ended up resorting to more drastic measures, as you'll see.
I've made noticeable improvement in making my life worse. So, but this is not the way to do it. This is just don't do it this way.
Oh, and also, I was aware the whole time that glass is indeed sharp, but I felt like gambling with the universe, telling it that glass is only sharp if I say it's sharp.
Wanna take mine and get close. Understand I know how things fall. Please just take my word and think it now. We stay up all night, bright nose.
That's cool. Ouch. That hurts. Don't do that.
Day 2.
So I took this knife and stabbed the glass with it because I was like, oh, wow, I wonder what that would do. And it literally snapped the knife end. And this is a legit knife. So I don't even know how I put a dent in that by punching it. It was only a matter of time of me messing with glass that this would happen. Gotta take care of that now. Darn it.
Day 3.
Yes, these are airsoft glasses. No, I don't have any self-respect left. That one hurt. That was deep. That was deep. I'm getting real gloves now.
Do you wanna wait more time? I wish you could be all mine. Wait till sunrise.
Well, I always say, if it works, it works. Yeah, I don't know if that worked. I'm gonna have to get the vacuum out here and fix my mess.
I can't do this for a lifetime.
now for the airbag. What I'm doing here is soldering a 2.2 ohm resistor to the airbag wiring so that when I put in the racing wheel, it won't freak out because there's no airbag. Basically, all you need to know is it just tricks the computer into thinking the airbag is there when really it isn't because race car. Now this is the first time I've ever soldered anything, so don't judge too hard.
Understand how your things fall. Please just take my word and think it now. We stay up all night, writing notes.
The universe is not supposed to be this easy for me. That should not have gone so well. Like, look at that.
Do you wanna wait more time? I wish you could be all mine. Wait till sunrise through the night. I can't do this for a lifetime.
Today we'll be tearing down the interior.
My line spread across the set, won't go away so easily.